if we want to keep attracting the best and the brightest from beyond our shores, we're going to have to fix our immigration system, which is broken, and pass common sense immigration reform. So I'm going to keep doing everything I can do to keep making our immigration system smarter and more efficient.
A relaxed enforcement posture, along with talk of comprehensive immigration reform. Just this week, the president defiantly vowed to take more administrative actions on immigration very soon. Such unilateral actions and failed policies, in my judgment, are what caused this dire situation here in Texas in the first place, and could cause it to be worse.
All right, immigration very heated right now. Let's bring in our panel to talk about it. Steve Hayes, senior writer for the Weekly Standard. Juan Williams, columnist with The Hill. And syndicated columnist Charles Krauthammer. Welcome to you all and happy 4th. Good to have you today. Thanks for giving us part of your holiday today. We appreciate it. Steve, let me start with you. The president continues to talk, as we've seen over the last several days, from, hey, they won't do anything on the Hill, so I'm going to have to do this by executive power, to again today bringing it up, saying, I'm going to keep pushing. How hard does he push? Because it seems like, at least for this legislative calendar, it's dead.
Well, it's certainly dead. I mean, I think what we saw from the president, having looked at his remarks, I mean, what we saw from the president today was largely platitudes about immigration. And, you know, typically on a 4th of July, when you attend a ceremony like the one the president attended, which are often very moving, you expect platitudes from your elected officials on days like this. What struck me in listening to the president was that they were the same platitudes he's been offering on other non-holidays. Basically, the president saying, yeah, look, immigration reform is important. Republicans aren't letting me do the things I want to do, therefore I'm going to move ahead on my own. It was sort of typical of the president's rhetoric on this and his unwillingness to actually try to seek any kind of a real compromise with Republicans on the issue.
Juan, do you think it's creating a deeper divide with the House GOP, which clearly has decided they're not moving forward on this? Or do you think the president feels like by doubling down, by going public with the strong language and the talk, that maybe he forces somebody into changing or at least softening their position? Do you think it's going to backfire, or will it work?
No, I think at this point Republicans are locked in. I think that there's very little chance that they're going to move on immigration. The hope was that they were going to do something in this interim before the August recess, so it would have been this month, last month, June or July, after they come back from the 4th of July recess. Now it looks like that's totally, not only is that out, it looks like there's nothing going to be even after the election, so it's just going to be not happening in this this year. But the bigger point is, you know what, I think that when I see people from around the world honor our country, want to become Americans, and there's just no other place in the world like that, I get excited. I think that that's something that gives me chills. I love it. I'm an immigrant myself, and I just think there's a special place. And I think Republicans right now are confusing what I consider to be a human tragedy. These children fleeing from war-torn areas and violence, the highest rate of murder in the world in some of these countries, to our doors. They're not trying to avoid immigration officials. They're coming to immigration officials under existing U.S. law and asking for some kind of special status. The administration now is trying to expedite this and in some cases return them home if their hearings, if the facts don't justify them being refugees. But for Republicans like not only McCall, but Rick Perry, the governor of Texas, to somehow say, oh, this is the failing of the administration, I just think they're confusing issues, and I don't think it's very attractive. And as far as the administration is concerned, it's not going to make Republicans somehow change. They're not going to change, but I think that the president wants to appeal to the American public to say it's not his fault.
Well, and we've heard DHS Secretary Jay Johnson in talking about the situation at the border, which by anyone's standards is tragic. Yeah. He said, though, it's a good chance for us to move immigration reform forward. We should look at this and use it as a springboard to get something done. But Charles, to Juan's point, I mean, I'm hearing from people on both sides of the aisle who will, whether only privately and not so publicly, acknowledge they think the president's decisions and his executive actions on immigration have sent a message, whether it's been received improperly or properly, to people who are coming here thinking they're getting something that they're allegedly not going to get, although some of these folks argue what happens in practice is very different than what happens on paper.
I think that's completely undeniable. The president unilaterally decided to override the meaning and the letter of the immigration laws and essentially to grant asylum and amnesty to young illegal immigrants. The message is received in Central America. It's not exactly received correctly, but obviously it's been received. That's why we have this amazing wave crashing against our shores, that if you're young and you come to America, you're going to stay. In fact, it's true. 90% of these kids are never going home. Everybody understands that. The word that's used now, they are being processed. That means they're being sent to relatives all over the interior of America, and they are never going home. So actually, it's a correct message. But what the president is talking today about, I want to keep attracting the best and the brightest from beyond our shores, he's completely disconnected from reality. He's talking about his legislation. It is totally unrelated to this inundation from the South. If you're worried about the best and the brightest, we know what that is. It's extending the visas, allowing work permits or residence for smart engineers, entrepreneurs from around the world in our universities, PhDs, and doubling, tripling, making it easier for them to stay. If you proposed that rather than so-called comprehensive, which involves all kinds of other stuff which is controversial, if you proposed only the best and the brightest, the kind of thing that Canada and Australia already have, it would be approved quickly. But he's not doing that. He's making that hostage to the amnesty program he wants for all the illegal immigrants in the country. And it is totally irrelevant when it comes to stemming the tide of those coming from Central America.
But Charles, you know, the reality is that we have... If he
passed the law today he wants to pass, it would have zero effect.
That's not true. It would have tremendous impact because we have 10 to 12 million illegal immigrants in the country. And part of that problem is people who overstay visas, people who fly in here, people who have all sorts. We need to fix that problem. I think everybody should agree on that. With regard to the best, hang on. With regard to the best and brightest,
the wave of illegal immigrants from Central America?
There's a wave of children. Right now there's net minus migration of people trying to sneak across. We're talking about a refugee crisis, a human crisis. And what I was going to say to you about the best and the brightest is big companies, corporations, Chamber of Commerce are all saying we're not getting the ability to keep those best and brightest, and it has to be part of comprehensive reform.
One, comprehensive reform is a way of saying amnesty and legalization. Let me assume
that's talk radio rhetoric.
Of course it means that. It doesn't mean anything else. No. But let me assume that that's a good idea. It's a humanitarian idea. It's a lovely idea. But even those who say that have to admit the fact, undeniable fact, that if you grant amnesty, as we granted amnesty in '86, of course it's a magnet to other people in Central America, the rest of the world, to come illegally, because it tells them if you stay here, succeed in staying, you will get amnesty.
We are changing the laws. We have more security. In fact, the literal security, the walls, the amount of money we're investing in that kind of security you're talking about is unprecedented, Charles.
Well, it doesn't appear to be working, at least right now in South Texas, so we're going to have to leave it there. You'd love to see what's going to happen during the commercial, but stick around. The Friday Lightning Round is next.